We are live. This is week 184 of Brada's Branded Thoughts, and I'm joined by Rivals' own Tom Kakert of HawkeyeReport.com. A very newsy afternoon here in Hawkeye Country, Tom, and lots to get to. I want to start off by talking about the breaking news that just came in here within about the last 40 minutes or so. Iowa's own Tyler Goodson has elected to leave early for the NFL draft, and he opts also to not play in the Citrus Bowl. I'll be completely honest, Tom. We see this. We've seen this on numerous occasions, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Davion Nixon. Of course, I'm trying to think of the last time this happened. Nixon declared early and was planning on skipping the game against Missouri last year. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
I think he was. Of course, the game never happened, so it doesn't matter. But this was a surprise to me. What were your initial thoughts? Did you see this coming, or did it blindside you as well?
It had been rumored for a couple days. People have been kind of suggesting it, and then I heard this morning that it was probably going to happen. So it didn't shock me. My first thought was, I wonder if Tyler wasn't completely healthy, and maybe that's why he's opting out. To try to get healthy, because he knew he was going to declare for the NFL draft, and you want to be healthy for that opportunity. And there's really nothing to be gained from playing in the Citrus Bowl. It's essentially an exhibition. It's not like there's, if it was a Rose Bowl thing, then I'd be like, what are you doing? You need to play in the Rose Bowl. But Citrus Bowl, I think we'll come to find out that he was probably banged up, and that's why he's doing what he's doing, and because I think he knew he was going to leave at the end of the year regardless. So, and now we'll wait and see what other guys do. I can say with 100% certainty, even if Tyler Linderbaum declares for the draft, he'll probably not declare until after the game. Was my guess. And he's going to play. I'm 100% certain that as long as he's healthy, Tyler Linderbaum will play in the Citrus Bowl. That's just him. That's who he is, and he's going to play. So that's
I'll sort of play the other side of this respectfully, if I will, here for a second. This is disappointing, I think, and I think I can speak for some fans in saying that I have no problem with Tyler Goodson leaving early for the NFL draft. I think his draft stock is certainly a question. I mean, I think I don't know.
That's very fair.
I'm not a scout, but I think that's a big question mark, and it's not all his fault. I mean, obviously the problems up front have affected his stock, but I think it's always disappointing when you don't finish the season with your team, and it's just part of where we're at right now. I mean, this is just how it is. But you brought up Tyler Linderbaum. It's the first person that came to my mind. If there's anybody physically that would have a real solid reason to not play in the Citrus Bowl, it would be a guy who's a surefire first-round draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we both agree that's not happening, and you seem pretty confident of that as well. And Stephen Lang asks a question here early. Will Goodson get drafted? Wouldn't he have been better off staying at Iowa or entering the portal? I'll just say this before you answer that question, Tom, and I've made this comment to Coach Don Patterson. I said it 2 weeks ago. I would be surprised if Tyler Goodson leaves Iowa and plays somewhere else. And I wouldn't necessarily blame him for that because, again, the issues Iowa has up front, I did not expect him to get drafted. Now, you, again, have more of a feel for what's going on inside the program than I do. But do you believe that he will be drafted again if the draft was tomorrow?
I'm not an NFL draft expert. I'll say that off the top. I follow it. Here's what I know about running backs today. Running backs today are kind of a disposable commodity. And they're not highly drafted unless you're just exceptional. The Saquon Barkley kind of players. Those are the guys that go in the first round. Derrick Henry, if you're kind of a unique back. Christian McCaffrey, talk about him. We saw that in the Rose Bowl. But most guys, it's fifth, sixth round at best. I think there's a chance he may not even get drafted, just because I was talking to a former Iowa player earlier today about this because I'd kind of heard that maybe this was going to happen. And his comment was, there's 1,000 guys like Tyler Goodson out there. And this is a guy who played in the league. So he knows. And he just said, it's like, 1,000 guys like him out there. So I just think it's going to be, can he play in the NFL? Sure. But it's not like he's a surefire NFL player. That's kind of, where I'd leave it.
And let's be honest, it's got to be the right fit. I mean, he's not going to be an every down. I don't see him being an every down back. No,
and it tells you how things have changed over the course of time, because I'll go back to like the 2009 Outback Bowl against South Carolina, and Sean Green had won the Doak Walker Award. He played the entire season, and he did not opt out of that bowl game. They didn't do that then, really. I mean, I don't remember anybody doing it back then, but he played in the bowl game and then told us right after the bowl game, I'm leaving for the NFL. So that's kind of how you did it before. It just tells you, and he was not a first round pick, but he was a draftable player. It's just, that's the way it is.
Yeah. So obviously fans, I mean, Tyler has brought a lot to this program, and of course, one of the few guys who played a lot as a freshman. And he is going to go down as far as, I don't know where he ranks as far as yardage totals. He's got like 25. I mean, he's like 2,500 yards, somewhere in there, Tom.
I think he's top 10, something like that. I think he's in the top 10. So
he would have certainly moved up had he come back. So, and he, everything, and I think there was a comment here from Cooper. This is a valid statement. From everything I've heard, and of course you've had conversations with Tyler, he seems like a really nice dude, and he seems like a humble guy. So I don't think anybody wishes badly on him. Again, disappointed that he's opting out early, but you can understand the thinking. And he's also got people talking to him, right? I mean, he's going to have NFL people trying to sway him one way or the other. And
no, he's having agents for sure. Agents are the people who are trying to sway these kids, really. They'll get NFL feedback from the teams, and they'll give them an idea of where they're going to be drafted, but the agents will tell them something different. And, sometimes kids believe that stuff. Don't believe what the agents say, believe what the NFL people say. And maybe they're higher on him than worth thinking. Here's the other thing. There's only so much tread on a running back's tires. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I think he's partially leaving, because you got to strike while you can strike. So we'll see. I hope he gets drafted, because then people will say, see, I told you shouldn't have left, And Geno Stone went in the 7th round, and everybody's like, see, if he should have come back. Well,
he's playing though. He's playing,
and he probably would have been a 7th round pick the next year, and maybe not even that if he got hurt. So you're better off just going and seeing if you can make it and seeing if you can make money, then, because that's their goal, is to make money playing football, paid for it, not just the NIL stuff, but get real money, get a check from an NFL team. And so I hope it works out for him.
Absolutely.
Great kid. Bennett, he was, I tweeted out, he was a great kid to interview. He's always real respectful, always generous with his time, good sense of humor. So from that perspective, but Iowa will be fine at running back in the bowl game. They've got Gavin Williams. They've got LaShawn Williams. So I suspect that both those guys will get plenty of work and kind of a glimpse to the future.
Kelly Martin, you don't see Kelly Martin sliding back into a starting role?
Maybe if he's healthy. I would like that.
I would too. It'd be nice for him.
It would be great if he could go out on a little bit of a high note. I know the fumbles have buried him, just the reality, put the ball on the ground. You're not going to earn the trust of the coaches very often.
Absolutely. And, one thing we got to remember with Kentucky is they do turn the ball over. As far as just their season, they've been a pretty high turnover team. And of course, Iowa turns people over. So, somebody made the comment to me today, do you really want to neutralize that advantage by throwing a kid who's got a history of fumbling the football and Ivory Kelly Martin? Do you really want to neutralize that advantage by playing him heavy minutes, or I guess say heavy snaps? And again, you mentioned Gavin Williams, Tom, and I see some comments here in the chat as well, just about his future. And again, LaShawn Williams has gotten some run, but it's been a while since he's had any significant time early in the season. So you've got him, and I'm trying to think who else is on scholarship. Devin Hilson's on scholarship. Am I missing somebody?
Not really.
So they need Caleb Johnson. They need Jazian Patterson next year.
Yep.
in a large way, then, just for depth purposes, even if they don't play right away.
For depth purposes, they're going to need the 2 backs. But I think that's probably why they were taking 2 backs in this class, because I think they probably had a pretty good idea that Tyler was going to take off for the NFL after this year. And so that's why you pursue both of them. The thing I like about Gavin Williams is he runs hard and he's always moving forward. He's not a guy that kind of gets stopped and that's where he's at. He'll fall forward, he'll move forward. So I think from that aspect, it's positive. I think he'll do okay. And I think LaShawn, the thing that talking to Kirk about him, the thing that kind of jumps out is Kirk's kind of hinted that he's one of those guys that plays way better when the lights are on. So in a game situation or fans in the stands, he might not be a great practice guy, that sort of thing. He'll be a guy that's going to come out there and you put the helmet and shoulder pads on and fans in the stands, and he's going to show up and play well.
Absolutely. And I've been saying this since the commitment, and I don't get real excited. I mean, you obviously have a better feel for recruiting than I do, Tom, but I've been excited about Jazian Patterson since the day he committed. I think I could be off on this, but just from what I've seen, he's maybe a different type of back than we've been accustomed to landing here for a while. And I credit Liddell Betts. Seems like since Liddell's been here, maybe a slightly different mindset with the type of back that I was recruiting. Again, I could be wrong on that, but Jazian and Caleb both seem like guys who are kind of almost tweeners, as opposed to the Wadley Goodson and the Gavin Williams, LaShawn Daniels type of back. And, let's be honest, those tweeners, you think of guys like Montgomery from Iowa State, you think of guys like Breece Hall, certainly Melvin Gordon, you go down the list of these great running backs who Iowa's had to go up against over the years. You don't see a lot of the Theo Riddick type of backs or again, Tyler Goodson necessarily succeeding highly at the next level. And that's why I hope and I wish nothing but good things for Tyler Goodson. But I think Iowa has got a good class coming in here at back. And, Iowa has proven too. I mean, they're not afraid as much as maybe, people look at Kirk as being a stubborn guy. And in some ways he is. They're not afraid to play young skill position players. I think we understand that, especially at receiver. And again, Tyler Goodson played as a freshman, so would not be shocked to see somebody emerge. Devin Hilson, what do you see? Does he stay at running back in your opinion?
It's a good question. I don't think we know for sure. I think at this point he's going to. He's probably going to stay there at least for another year, I would think. But after that, it just depends on how guys develop and how they play, how they perform. But right now, I think he's definitely running back, and then we'll see if he transitions over to the defensive side or something a year after that. But right now, running back, and I'm really the guy I really like is Caleb Johnson. He just earned a 4th star from Rivals. So he's certainly impressed our scouts with his senior film. He's big back, power back, kind of fits with Iowa, what Iowa does well. So I think getting him to flip from Cal to Iowa was a pretty significant deal. And then just giving them that depth, in the 4-star, that's a big deal. And Jesse Patterson actually lost his 4th star, so I
saw that. I noticed that.
down to a 3, and they've just had kind of a disjointed year with their, their coach leaving, and just it's been a weird season at Deerfield Beach. I don't know what their record is. I can't remember, but I just know it's been a weird year for them.
But Caleb Johnson, and I observed the same thing about Caleb. He's obviously got power. He can lower his shoulder pads. He's hard. I think both these guys are hard to bring down. Again,
Sure.
we're looking at, you have to put everything, you got to look at everything with a grain of salt, and weigh competition, but he's hard to bring down. But I think both guys have a bit of, I don't know, I would say breakaway speed, but both guys have a good amount of speed as well. And I would expect them to immediately come in and compete for playing time. I mean, you obviously assume that Gavin next year, Kelly Martin's not coming back, right? Does he have an extra year of eligibility if he wanted one?
He could come back.
So
I don't expect him back.
He's sure been a leader on special teams, obviously, with Terry Roberts. But again, the fumbling issues, I would just, at some point, I would think that internal clock goes off. But again, given the decision from Tyler and I guess we've seen crazier things happen. But again, I think depth-wise, they'll be okay once Patterson and Johnson are here, but they'll be a bit thin for this Kentucky game. And so I would expect Kelly Martin to get a run. I will say this, as I'll pop up our next banner here: Goodson, Tracy, Hogan, Meehan, Hudson. So am I missing anybody as far as recent transfers of scholarship kids, Tom?
Well, I'm trying to remember. There's like 6 guys I think 5 or 6 guys. So that might be about it.
And I know Goodson declared, so I shouldn't say transfer, but everyone else on here is a transfer.
Yeah, the departures, and the Tracy one, not a surprise at all. I think even I joked that even Stevie Wonder could see that one coming. You could tell he's been unhappy for basically 2 years. I mean, last year he was unhappy at the first part of the year, but you could explain it away, right? You could say Amir Smith-Marset, Brandon Smith, those were the focal guys at wide receiver. So that's why he wasn't getting in there. But then, as this season drug on, and he barely gets to 100 yards receiving in the season, when he's the kid that you thought was going to be the feature wide receiver on this team, the leading wide receiver, and probably catching a ton of balls, and instead he barely got to 100 yards receiving the entire season. And his snaps just kept dropping because, he was getting passed over by Keegan Johnson and Arlen Bruce, to be honest, and some Charlie Jones, and was getting more snaps. So you can explain it away, and but it's tough to lose guys like Goodson and Tracy. You think back to that Holiday Bowl; both those guys figured prominently in that game. A couple years ago, the last game that Iowa played in, they have prominent roles, and he thought that Iowa would build on those guys in the next 2 or 3 years. And now both guys are going to be gone for different reasons, but they're both going to be gone. And the Deuce Hogan thing, well, Hudson, that's just, he got passed over by the freshman. Guys want to play, he wasn't getting snaps. The Hogan thing, I think we can safely point to the fact that. Here's what I say about Hogan. I think it's fairly clear he was thinking about leaving. I think it was fairly clear that he was probably had a foot and a half out the door.
The comments sealed the deal, though, Tom.
But the comments by Kirk Ferentz, funny, not funny, poorly timed, poorly executed, leave the jokes to the comedians, those sorts of things. The fact is that pushed him out the door. Yeah. He basically saw that there was, from his perspective, you can see he probably felt like, well, I'm never going to play here. Now, I'll say this, Joey Labus has been really good in practice.
That's what I've heard.
He may have been getting passed by the spring anyway, and may have seen that freight train coming. And again, guys want to play. That's what they want to do. Meehan, he,
that one surprised me a bit, Tom. That one surprised me a little bit.
But he, again, wants to play. He looks he talks to Sam Laporta. I know people have said, well, maybe Sam will put his name in the NFL. He's coming back. And that's one of the things that Josiah checked in on was, is he coming back or not? And turns out he wasn't. So he was coming back rather. So he's not going anywhere. And so kid wants to play. The clock is ticking. That's the thing that I always come back to with these guys. It's not an infinite amount of time. They've got 5 years to essentially play college football. And every year that goes by that you're a backup, you're not playing college football.
Yeah. Bora Rim asks a question: how big is this recruiting class going to be now with all the departures? There's not much time left in the recruiting class, Tom, unless we're talking transfer market. How much bigger can this class get?
Yeah, I there may be some guys that straggle into the traditional signing day in January. I think I was probably going to get a couple more here this weekend. A couple guys that I put in our future casts for this week. I had done the one on Xavier Nwankpa and back in October, early October. I think I was the first one to out of kind of like somebody who covers the team to put in for him. So TJ Hall, I think, is going to be a Hawkeye. I think Orlando Trader, defensive back, both defensive backs, both are going to be Hawkeyes. I think Landon Van Kurik, I think is how you say it, Kekarik, is going to be a Hawkeye, kid from Rock Valley, the linebacker. There may be five guys, 6 guys that they end up getting here. Apologize for my dogs. They're
okay.
They're probably barking at the mailman. But Brian Allen,
they're upset about the Goodson departure too.
Yeah, Brian Allen, Karon Crawford, the defensive end from Tennessee that's visiting this weekend. Brian Allen's been in Iowa. I think the holdup is just convincing mom there. So Cohen and Traeger is coming in this weekend. A kid from Michigan's got some really good offers: Wisconsin, Iowa, Michigan. But our national guy, Clint Cosgrove, switched his future cast to Iowa today. So feels like maybe there's something going there. So we'll see. They could finish, get all those guys, get up to like 18 or so. That'd be all right, I think.
Tom, let's be honest, though. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but the departures, regardless if this class gets any bigger or not, which it sounds like it likely will before signing day, but this does allow extra opportunity for Kirk to extend that offer of exercising an extra year of COVID eligibility, right? I mean, there are, obviously, we talked about Charlie Jones. I don't know how I feel like if I had to guess, I would guess Charlie returns. Do you have a feel because I think he's probably one of the bigger storylines or recruiting stories within the program right now.
Yeah, I think, next to after getting Xavier, Charlie Jones arguably would be their next biggest recruit, because you look at the scholarship distribution chart, and we've got that on our site that people can look up just under our football recruiting tab. There's a scholarship distribution chart. And it has gotten thin, folks, with Tracy leaving. And, so you've got Nico Reganey, who'll be going into his senior year. You've got Bruce and Johnson as sophomores, Deontay Vines, sophomore, Brody Brecht, who I've heard some really good things about in terms of how he's done once he got healthy, once that thumb healed up. He and Joey Labus have been doing pretty well together on the scout team. And then you've got Bostic, who will be signing on Wednesday. But that's still not a lot. That's 6 guys on scholarship. Now, Jackson Ritter may end up being a kid who goes on scholarship, so you'd have 7. But ideally, you want to have a few more names in there. So getting Charlie for another year would be massive from a receiver perspective, but also from a return man perspective, because he's one of the best. He won the award for the conference this year, for gosh sakes. He's really good. He's really good at what he does in that area. So I think that's probably better than 50% chance that he comes back. Just feels like he's coming back. The other guy that I'm curious about is Riley Moss, because and Dane Belton. I think Dane Belton's going to be a kind of a stealthy decision that's got to be made. I know he's going to also kind of explore, get feedback. I'm sure Riley's getting feedback. He's basically said he is. So, but if they get both those guys back, and Jack Kerner doesn't come back, I'm not sure that Jack's going to come back. I haven't gotten a feel for that. But if Riley came back and you've got Xavier Nwankpa going back there, you could move, Merriweather and Dalton back to safety, put Xavier at the cash, Riley Moss, Terry Roberts. That's not bad.
Well, Tom, I don't. Maybe you have a better feel for this as well, but somebody that's really gotten the fans' attention, at least on our shows, is Cooper.
Oh, Cooper King, yes.
Where does he fit into everything?
That's a great question, and I was going to mention Cooper too because he's been working at corner, and I asked Kirk about that. It feels like it was kind of out of necessity more than anything.
Yeah,
else, that they were just kind of getting thin on healthy bodies at the position, and the kid's just so natural. He's a natural. He just is. You've seen him on those kickoff coverages and punt coverages, flying down there, and just he's got a natural nose for the ball. He's Tyler Sash-ish in that way, where the ball always just seemed to find Sash. So we'll see. I think right now he's a corner. I think more naturally he's a safety, but he could play corner. Maybe it just works out that he plays corner and he's really good at it, and he could start there. And that's just some massive athleticism that they're going to be able to put on the field in the defensive backfield. That back seven, boy, that's some fun players. A lot of guys that are rangy. When you think about the linebackers too, with the way Jack Campbell and Justin Jacobs, they're two guys that go sideline to sideline with anybody in the country. And Seth Benson, who's as solid a player as you'll find out there on defense every Saturday.
So corner, looking forward, again, we don't know what Moss is going to do. Terry Roberts has another year at least, right? He's got one more year, plus I guess a COVID year if he wanted it. And then Jamari, of course, got a lot of run this year. So they've got bodies. Who's behind those two, though, if Moss leaves?
That's the good question, because right now we've got Cooper there, but
Xavier Williams, can Xavier get another year? He's been in school forever.
I think he could. You got AJ Lawson, you got Brendan Dace Fernandez as two guys to watch.
Wow.
But then you've got the freshmen, like if they get Trader or TJ Hall, those guys would come in and potentially play right away. I really like Hall's film. He's very good. He's got a chance to be really good. So, but even safety's kind of thin. I mean, they've got Belton, Dallas Craddock, guys like that. So, they've got some bodies.
Tom, that's somebody I complimented 2 days ago during one of our streams is Dallas Craddock.
Yeah.
The guy's a senior. He's stuck around.
Yeah. Castro, Reggie Bracey. Those are some other guys, but
Schulte. Did you mention Schulte?
Yeah, he's not on. I'm sure he's on scholarship by now, but we just haven't been able to confirm it with him. But he's another guy that they're going to probably put on scholarship. We just know that that's going to happen.
Okay, so Justin wants to change the topic here for a second. Are they going to bring in any offensive coaches this year? Okay, so coaching staff changes, and I'm okay with talking about coaching staff changes once the bowl game's over. I've kind of not done that because, first of all, I don't think there are going to be any changes. That's just how I feel. Not any major changes. Do you foresee coaching staff changes?
Yeah, you never know. If a guy gets itchy about wanting to do their own thing or just an opportunity. Like, I didn't sense there was going to be changes last year, and there ended up being changes. Tim Powlsek got an offer he couldn't refuse, and it was because A.J. Blazek left Wyoming after being there for about 2 weeks, and then got the Vanderbilt offer. And so, that's what happens. It's weird stuff. Or Dirk Foster leaves for the Chargers because he's friends with the new Chargers coach and ends up being the running backs coach there. So he leaves. Maybe a Seth Wallace gets a DC job, a high-profile Power 5 DC job somewhere. I don't know. But most guys are filling staffs, but, things might open up somewhere. It just depends. I'm not saying that Seth is looking to leave. I want people to be clear. People will be saying tomorrow, okay, well, Kakert said that he was leaving. He's looking for a new job. No, I'm not just saying that. I'm saying he's an very attractive candidate that could potentially get interest. I mean, he's been mentioned for other jobs, so I'm not like breaking news here that like Seth is an attractive candidate somewhere.
Let me just clarify. I think Justin, given the fact that he's specifically bringing up offensive coaching changes, I think he wants
Brian Ferentz.
I think Brian, but he wants to know: are there going to be changes prompted by Iowa
to the offense? Oh, like.
I'm not talking about guys leaving for other opportunities, Tom. I'm talking about firing.
People get packed.
Yes, I think the answer to that question is no.
Yeah, I don't think Kirk's going to fire his son.
No, he's not going to. No,
he's not firing his son. So, I know some people want him fired. I've heard from those folks. Heard a lot from those folks. But Brian's not leaving. Brian is, does Brian have to do better? Brian would tell you he needs to do better. So Brian will be the first one. The thing that I enjoy about Brian Ferentz is Brian Ferentz is accountable. He really is. He'll be the first one to say, I need to do a better job. So you don't have to tell him that he stinks. He knows when he stinks. And so he'll be, I think part of it is the offensive line. And Kirk's kind of thrown some breadcrumbs recently to where he thinks, because he was like, oh, the line's getting better. But then the other day he threw out the breadcrumb about the offensive line and said, Cody Entz was a little slow coming back from surgery in the spring. And then Kyler got hurt. We thought we'd have this core three in the middle, and then you could just work on getting the tackles up to speed. And you'd have Linderbaum, Entz, Schott in the middle, and you don't have to worry about them as much because they've started games. And you can focus on those tackles and trying to develop them. So when Kirk started to throw those breadcrumbs down, I was like, okay, he's just basically telling us that the problem with the run game was just that Cody was really slow coming back from his surgery. And then Kyler jumped off a hay bale and he was lost and slow to get back. So that's that's where I'm at. There's not going to be a change in the offensive coordinator. It's just not going to happen. So I know people are frustrated by him, but it's just not going to change.
Brian's running Kirk's offense, Tom.
Yes, I've said that for years. When Ken O'Keefe, because I've been doing this for a long time. So I remember, as long as I've been doing it, Fire OK was a thing. GD. After that, and I always, they were like, thank God that Ken O'Keefe's gone, and then they got Greg Davis, and they're like, thank God Greg Davis is gone. It's just they're, and I get it, but they are running Kirk's offense. This is what Kirk wants. Now, is Kirk calling plays? No, not saying that. What I'm saying is that they have parameters. Here's the thing I've always said about Brian. Take Iowa's offense is like something that you're going to, like a paint or color. And Brian has the ability, more than Ken, more than Greg, to color outside that, to bring in things like the Wildcat or the jet sweep motion kind of stuff that Iowa never really did. I mean, there was inside zone, outside zone before, and some play action, some waggles, things like that. He's expanded the offense. Now, has it been good? I'm not going to defend it.
No.
297 for the season.
But Tom, it hasn't been good in years.
Yeah.
I mean, when's the last time the offense has been good? I mean, good. I'm not talking about decent. I'm talking about good.
Good. I was looking back at some of the old data, and basically every year, on its balance, every year their total offense, they're probably between 360 and 380, just about every year. There's some years where it's lower. There's a couple of outliers where they've got 400, but not very often. It's always, but this is a low number. I mean, 297 is really down. I'll give you an example. Like the 2019, the total offense for that team was like 319 a game. Just wild, because that was a really good football team. But it had a couple of young running backs and Rick Stanzi throwing interceptions every week. And, they just shockingly rode a defense to a, pretty good year.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that to bash Kirk or anything, but it's just a fact. The offense is what it is,
he has a philosophy.
And then so I've come out and said, and this is just, I'm not asking you to endorse my feelings on it, Tom, but with where the offense is, yes, there are problems up front. There are problems at quarterback. There are problems. There were problems with drops at times this year from receivers, to be completely honest. And I think there are some play calling issues. I think there are some major clock management issues. And I've come to the conclusion that there needs to be, I don't think there's going to be, people can talk about, is there going to be a change in the coaching staff? Is Kirk he's not firing his son. I'm not saying he should, because again, I think Kirk, this is his offense that Brian's running. There's got to be some change in basic philosophy. I know that Kirk is, in the final phase of his career and that he is what he is, but at some point you have to evolve a little bit. And I want to give Kirk the benefit of the doubt that he realizes that, because it's not just one issue now, Tom. There's issues a lot of different places. Like I bring up clock management. I've said this publicly on the show many times. Iowa has issues with clock management almost every week. And that's something that, to me, at some point, you've got to figure out somebody that can come in there and just focus on clock. I'm not saying you hire a clock management coach, but somebody's got to be an expert in that field. And I don't know that Iowa has that guy right now.
They do have an analytics group that helps them with decisions. And I don't know how much it is with clock, but just like, are you going on 4th and 2? From this yard line, or should you go, and what's your conversion? I know they do work with because Kirk has said, I know this will come as a surprise to everyone. Kirk has said that's his most disliked meeting of the week.
Well,
I know that's a shocker.
I'm more so talking, Tom, about into the first half against Michigan, to let the clock run down on 4th down to 1:20. In no universe does that make sense to do. You call the timeout every time in that situation, and I'm not saying that that's this specifically on Kirk only, but at some point that's just one little issue. But I think it's a microcosm of just some philosophical and some issues with philosophy for this offense. And I know it's a deep problem, but you're right. There have been years where Iowa's offense has been good enough. And the fact is, Iowa won 10 games this year with the offense the way it was, which is incredible.
And if I was Kirk and people were complaining about the offense, I said, I would look at him and I would say, with a completely straight face, what's my job to do? Win football games, right?
You're right.
Ultimately, if you have a great offense and you're going 6-6 every year, you're going to get fired a lot sooner than somebody with a bad offense that's going 10-2. I think I want to look this up, but I'm guessing the list of schools that have gone 2 out of the last 3 years winning 10 games is a short one. It's probably 15 teams maybe, and that's probably being high.
And again, devil's advocate here, Tom, would say, yeah, but we're wasting an elite special teams unit. We're 100%. Wasting an elite defense.
100%. Chuck Long and I talked about that on Monday, and Chuck is of the opinion that they have probably in the last 5 years lost out on winning 2 more Big West titles because the defense has been so good and the offense has just not been good, and the offense has struggled against guys against the Wisconsins of the world, and that's just been a problem. And we saw it Saturday, where you can there's certain teams they can't. What teams do they struggle against in the Big Ten West? They struggle against Wisconsin because Wisconsin's got is better defense, or as good as Iowa's,
and a run game that works.
They figured that out. And Wisconsin did something this year. They figured it out during the year that they can't rely on Graham Mertz, but they can rely on a 17-year-old freshman and ride him, and Maluzzi when he was healthy. They could rely on that run game. That's what they did. They tried to be a passing team, and it didn't work. And they started 1-3, and then Paul Chryst got smart and said, "Okay, let's just go back to being who we are." And the other team is Purdue. Then why is Purdue successful? Because they've been able to isolate people on defense, and Iowa doesn't double team. So in the secondary, so David Bell or whoever exploits it, and they're able to outscore Iowa. And that's just, other teams are just not as smart about it. Michigan, that game just went downhill. And that was first quarter. Only Iowa would throw a halfback pass to a fullback streaking down the field. Only Iowa would do that. But
it was open.
It was open. It was open.
Got to execute.
Gavin Williams just overshot him. But then when Michigan does kind of the same play, but throws it to a receiver, they score a touchdown. That's when you know.
Tom, again, to be critical of play calling, that's the one exotic Iowa had the entire game.
Yeah, and I was talking about that during the week. I said that this is a game where nobody thinks you're going to win, so empty the vault. You got some trick plays.
I don't think there's. I wonder if there's anything in the vault, Tom. And I don't. I mean, again, that's not to be critical or insulting to the Iowa staff, but I honestly wonder, was there any more in the vault? Because again, I'm in agreement with you. If there was anything out there, wouldn't you pull it out when you're down 14-3, 17-3, 24-3, or 24-6, whatever it was? Wouldn't you pull it out at that point?
The other thing I think is, I wonder if maybe the quarterback change dictated maybe that there's nothing that they could do. I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to say.
Ryan brings up, he says, maybe you mentioned it, but what does the running back position look like for the bowl game and next year? I think we did talk about that earlier, but I think we're clear that Kelly Martin, if he's healthy, would likely at least get some run, and then of course the two Williams kids.
Yeah, I think it's both the Williams, and I'd like to see Ivory Kelly get a shot. I know the fumbles were as much the issue than anything, but I'd love.
He's a good runner.
He's a good runner. Great kid too. So, yeah. So.
And next year, of course, Jazzy Patterson, Caleb Johnson. Do they go? Would you be surprised if they went and tried to grab a Mekhi Sargent or like the kid? What was the James Butler from Nevada? Would you be surprised if they tried to do it? They've done that before at running back.
They have. I would be surprised, but maybe they do. Maybe there's somebody out there that's attractive to them. That's it's like dating though. Both sides have to be attracted to each other. They got to have an opportunity. That's why I'm like the receiver position. That's the thing with the portal that's so difficult is, because guys they're looking for playing time. You don't go in the portal I just want to go somewhere else. No, you go to the portal because you want to play. And that's where that's why like a Desmond Hudson is leaving. That's why Tyrone Tracy is just, the young guys have passed him over. So is there a spot? Is there a chance for me to come in and play? That's what guys are looking for. That's why the quarterback thing, I know that's come up too. People are like, well, why don't they bring in a transfer quarterback? Deuce Hogan's gone and you can maybe find somebody in the portal. Guess what would happen the minute that Iowa brings in somebody from the portal? You're going to see one or two names at the quarterback position in the portal from Iowa.
Would that be the worst thing, Tom?
I don't know if it would be the worst thing, but I'm just saying you better be darn sure that what you're doing, because then you're just going to Spencer or Allie. To me, here's an interesting thing. To me, the most fascinating thing about this bowl prep is going to be what Kirk does with the quarterbacks. Is it going to be like the Tax Slayer Bowl? Are they going to do the thing with 2 series and 2 series? And is he going to have to make a decision in January, or are these guys going to be agreeable to, hey, let's just battle it out into the spring and see where it goes in the spring? I think Kirk would hope that that's what they do, but it depends on what those guys want to find out. That's why, because only one can play. You're going to have to set. I know he could play 2, but I don't think he wants to. And do you open it up if Labus is really that good and you're sold on him? Are you going to throw him out there too and see if he can win the job? Why not?
Well, that's what's disappointing to me about. I'm not implying that Deuce Hogan was the best quarterback on the roster, but that's what's disappointing about the comments that Kirk made, because you would hope that, and maybe he would have transferred at that point anyways, but had those comments not been made, perhaps you get Deuce Hogan at least through the bowl game and bowl prep, and perhaps he shows something in bowl prep, and then again he has an opportunity to show something against Kentucky. Because I'm under the opinion, Tom, and again, this is just my opinion, I think Iowa's got an issue at quarterback, and I have said that if there's any year where Iowa needs to at least look into the portal at quarterback, it would be this year, and I've never ever said that before.
Sure.
So is there anybody out there that I brought up this name, and again, perhaps I'm not going to even try to attempt to pronounce this last name, but
the kid
you
from
recognize?
Clemson?
Yeah, the kid from Clemson. I brought him up this week a couple times on Twitter and on a show or two, but I've not heard any rumblings that Iowa has even reached out. But he did play high school ball with Nico, and he was recruited by Iowa, and he's in the portal now. He's dual threat. He's a 4-star kid. Have you heard anything about Iowa reaching out?
No, and I don't know that he's even interested in Iowa, to be honest. So it's a mutual thing. It's not just love on one end.
It is. You're right.
And we don't know how good that kid is either, because he didn't really play at Clemson. And Lord knows they needed some help this year at quarterback too, because they had their share of struggles.
So have you heard anything as far as rumblings, quarterback transfer interest at all? I know there's several quarterbacks that were recruited by Iowa initially that are in the portal. A kid from Minnesota was recruited by, I believe, LeVar Woods, actually. I can't remember if he was from Texas, where he was from, but nothing at all as far as transfer portal rumors or any other position other than quarterback?
No, haven't heard anything. So I would imagine that they're just going to keep operating as they are, and unless something pops. But most of those guys that go in the portal, I shouldn't say most, but some, a good portion, smart ones, are already kind of know what their menu is before they go sit down and
right.
decide to.
Sure.
And the communication has been, communication has already taken place. I'm not in denial about the quarterback thing. I saw that guy's thing. I'm not in denial about that. It's part of the deal.
And I understand where you're coming from. There's a reason why they're
in denial. I don't live in the river of denial.
You are acknowledging that there's a quarterback issue, but again,
part of the issue.
Guys, for the most part, guys are transferring because they're not playing where they're at. Now, I will say about the Tyson kid, he did play a little bit this year when I can't pronounce any of the Clemson quarterbacks' last names. The
DJ
other guy,
Ungalule, I think.
Yeah, whatever. DJ. When DJ went down, Tyson did come in and play a little bit, and I don't quite understand. I don't know what happened there, but of course, you understand why I would go there, right, Tom? I mean,
Sure.
Obviously Iowa was interested in 2019, and you'd have to think they have a relationship. And I don't know if Nico, I'm not implying that Nico Regani's not happy here, but that was another question. He's sort of kind of taken a back seat to some of these freshmen a bit. So that would be my next question. Is Nico happy enough to where, say they were interested in a kid like Tyson, that he would go out and be able to help them grab a guy like Tyson? I don't know. It's just speculation.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I don't, like I said, it's got to be mutual interest. I wonder if that kid's just going to end up somewhere else. And because like I've said, most of these guys that go in the portal, especially the higher profile ones, already know. Like when Quinn Ewers went into the portal, you knew that Texas was going to be on his menu as a possibility.
Right.
I think he's just down to like Texas Tech and Texas now at this point.
Yeah. So
total offense 120. Yeah, Chuck Long and I talked about that on Monday, the total offense thing, and it's bad. I'm not defending the offense. It's been bad for a myriad of reasons. It's been offensive line issues. It's been play calling. It's been a lot of things. There's a lot that went into that stew that caused the offense to struggle this year.
Yeah, and for the record, in my tweet earlier this week about, again, I'm not a recruiting expert or anything like that. So that was just purely speculation. And for anybody who's curious on the Tyson, do you even know how to pronounce his last? Do you remember when they recruited him, Tom?
Yeah, they were barely mentioned with him. So it's like they probably offered him but there was never there was any traction there.
So he's being, according to Connecticut Insider, apparently talked to his dad. He's being recruited now by Cal, Florida State, Ole Miss, Nebraska, Pittsburgh, Colorado, and South Carolina. So no mention of Iowa there. So again, but it is something on people's minds. The quarterback position probably more so than it has been in recent years. And you mentioned the Tax Slayer Bowl in 2014. The quarterback position was a concern of people then. The one difference, though, Tom, and I've drawn this comparison in the past. The one difference that I would draw as it relates to the Rudock Beathard situation is you go into 2013, and we were made to believe heading into fall camp that it was a tight battle with Jake Rudock, CJ Beathard, and Cody Sokol. I mean, those three guys were neck and neck throughout fall camp. They end up going with Jake. He retains the job through 13. They have a decent season. Then go into 14, some struggles, winning season, but they struggle, and of course struggle in the bowl game. The reason why I can't necessarily say apples to apples with this quarterback situation is because we were made to believe in January of last year, before the 2020 season even got close to commencing or before spring practice even started, we were made to believe that Spencer was far and away the number one quarterback and that there was a big gap. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've been on the beat forever. How often does Kirk Ferentz endorse a new starting quarterback who basically hasn't played in January before spring practice starts? I don't remember that.
Doesn't happen often. Maybe the Nate Stanley thing, but even that was not 100% like that. But
it was odd. I thought it was odd. I just thought it was odd.
It was like he was trying to instill confidence. That's what it felt like. It felt like he was doing that to instill confidence in the team and to avoid any controversy. And he was probably way ahead of those guys at that time. Now Alex has closed that gap. I'll throw this out there though. If you compare like the Beathard Rudock thing to Petrus Padilla, I think it's safe to say Rudock and certainly Beathard are better than either of the guys now.
Absolutely. And Sokol, Tom, I'd like Cody Sokol.
La Tech and did really well.
Yes, absolutely. I think it'd be a blessing to have. I think Cody Sokol was here, he would have won this starting job.
Yeah.
So again, that's why. And so I just look forward. I'm moving forward. They don't have three guys that they had a ton of confidence in. And maybe Alex, certainly Alex has helped that cause. But when Alex came in this year and has played, that was the moment where a light bulb turned on for me that said, okay, there's not a big gap here. I've thought for a year and a half that there's some big gap here because that's how I've, and again, maybe it was Kirk Ferentz just trying to instill confidence in Spencer.
He did say that the gap closed. He did say that. So I will say that. And he said that the gap between Deuce and Alex closed. But yeah, he did. He did direct it. I see Hayden. We're all good. All good, brother. We're all good, brother. Thank you.
So again, looking forward, obviously fans can want whatever they want. I personally, this is my personal opinion, I'd like Iowa, and this, again, I've never said it before, I would like Iowa to at least look into the portal. I'm sure they're open to those possibilities, but you're right. The options aren't just there, and there's got to be mutual interest. But assuming they don't get anybody in the portal, and assuming this is the quarterback room for the future, you got Carson May, who was also upgraded. I believe Rivals was upgraded to a 4-star now.
Yeah.
So you got him.
And keep an eye on Monday. There might be another. Let's just say there might be some news Monday about a quarterback coming for Iowa too.
Not portal related.
2023.
I think I know who you're talking about, but I won't say.
I may have put a future cast in for him in the last week.
Okay.
So.
Well, I know they're high on the kid from Ankeny, but we won't put you on the spot. So there may be some good news there. And moving forward, though, just looking at this next spring, I would have to think that this is an open competition. There will be no endorsements in January. Kirk is not going to go out and say.
That's the thing I wonder about is, will these guys kind of say, because it's, I don't want to say it's political because it's not political. That's not the right term, but sometimes the quarterbacks kind of say, hey, I need to know, because if I'm not going to be the starter, I need to get my butt in the portal so I can find a place to land. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So like the Rudock thing, because I think that was, the hand was forced. Both those guys were like, hey, we need to know so one of us can get in the portal. So we can go. So, and Jake Rudock ends up at Michigan and does really well there. CJ Beathard, obviously, we all know what happened 2015 at Iowa. It was a very good year. So it worked out for both parties. And it worked out terrifically for both parties. So that's what I wonder about. And that's the most curious thing, is how is Kirk going to approach this? And here's the other thing. We don't know if Spencer Petras is healthy. We don't know the extent of the torso injury that he sustained in the Big Ten title game less than a week ago. Is that something that's going to impede him from playing in a bowl game? This whole thing may be moot at this, in a week when we talked, or Wednesday when we talked to Kirk at signing day, and we're going to ask him, about your recruits, but also how's Spencer? Is he available for you? Going to be available in the bowl game? Because he's already ruled out Matt Hankins. He did that a while ago. That Matt's not going to play. But if Spencer can't go, then now we're going to find out. Alex Padilla, go win the job.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see a guess here for who you're talking about in the class of 2023. I know that, again, they're in on a couple quarterbacks in that class, and I have heard one has been rumored to be close to committing, and it's probably not the one from Ankeny. But what is the name of the kid from Ankeny?
JJ Cole.
Cole. Yeah. So they again, and they're all pro style quarterbacks. I mean, Iowa's not got anybody that the Marco, is it Lainez kid?
Lainez, yeah.
He's more of a. I see Hayden commented his name. He's more of a dual. I mean, he's more dual threat than anybody Iowa has probably now. But he's a pro style kid, right? He fits into the Iowa mold.
Yeah, and he works with the same quarterback coach that worked with Nate Stanley and has worked with Spencer Petras. Tony Rasiopi is the guy's name, from New Jersey. He's a good guy. So I know he's pretty sold on him. And Tony's gotten pretty close with Ken O'Keefe. So I think that's really helped Iowa.
Spaceboy 74, he's hopeful that Iowa can grab. He commented this earlier in the week. Max Johnson and his tight end brother. I don't even think they recruited his brother at tight end, did they?
No.
They never really even were in on him. And he was he the number one tight end in the country?
Might have been.
Yeah.
Max Johnson.
But I don't think that's going to happen. Max is a lefty. And I think everybody, it's sort of like the Hauser brother situation where I don't think Iowa really, I don't even know that I have no reason to think Iowa was interested in the Johnsons, but the Hauser brother recruitment was sort of a pipe dream, I think, as well.
Sam and
Dennis,
Joey? Yeah.
What's that? Say that again.
Sam and Joey?
Yeah. And I believe, are they both playing still this? I don't know. The one's not, right? He's done.
Sam's done. He was at Virginia last year.
Yeah.
Joey's still playing. I don't even know if Joey's starting for Michigan State. I'm not even sure of that. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, let's transition here because we've already burned about an hour here, Tom. And I don't want to keep you here all afternoon, but
I got about 10 more minutes, and then I got to go.
Let's touch on Nwankpa because that's what everybody wants to talk about. I mean, the Xavier Nwankpa story was obviously the biggest, and then we can finish with Cyhawk. There's not much to talk about as far as the Cyhawk game, but Xavier Nwankpa's enrolling in January. I saw
Yep.
he officially made. I mean, you reported that earlier in the week, but he made that official on Twitter today, I believe. So what does that do? I mean, we talked about the defensive backfield for Iowa next year, and they've got a lot of young talent back there.
Yeah.
But and you know, whether Jack Kerner and Dane Belton, you know, those guys, either one of those guys could leave. You could have more transfer news coming. But you've been covering the beat for so long. How historic is this commitment? And of course, assuming he fulfills that and signs, how big is this, and how historic?
So the Rivals era goes back to 2003. So it doesn't include the 2001 class, which would have included Blake Larson. Blake Larson, we've kind of figured out that he was like 29th in that class, I think. He was top 30, but he was a 5-star.
Yeah.
Xavier's number 20. Other 5-stars that Iowa's gotten, I guess you could include Kyle Bonecrusher Smith, but or Kyle Williams rather, but he never really. He was in camp, and then he was gone. So, then you got Dan Doring, who was 27, I think, and then eventually AJ Epinesa worked his way up to 30th and a 5-star, but that wasn't when he signed. He was still a 4-star. So. The thing that's impressed me about Xavier right out of the gate is that he has hit the ground running as a recruiter.
Yeah,
and he was first thing out there. He was like, "Bro, you're coming with me," you know. And that's we should note he's got a fellow 5-star at his high school.
Yeah,
in Caden Proctor,
who's probably going to end up being ranked higher than Xavier.
He's 7th in the country. He's the highest.
So right now he is.
Yeah, he's ranked higher. He'll end up being ranked higher. I don't think there's any.
I have a bad feeling about that. You know, obviously it helps getting Xavier, but I've always believed, and I'm sure you'd probably agree with this. I've always believed that Iowa had a better shot at landing Xavier than Jaden.
Yeah, I think so. And Spaceboy just mentioned he's going to be in town. Yes, he'll be in town this weekend, making an unofficial. Xavier's going to be there too. Caleb Johnson's coming in town too.
I saw that. Yeah,
all on their own dime. All those guys are coming on their own dime. So it's a big deal that they're getting Proctor. I talked to Proctor a little bit at the announcement, and he was kind of reluctant to talk a little bit about anything really, but he did say that Nwankpa's in his ear already, asking him to come to Iowa, and he told him, Xavier said he's coming to Iowa with him. So, believe him if you want, but he said he's coming. I feel pretty good about their chances with him.
Okay.
I feel pretty good about their chances with Kyler Casper, 4-star wide receiver, Kevin's son, who's really good. And, he's a top 100 player. If Proctor's, he's 4 inches taller. Yeah, he makes Wirfs look little.
He does. Isn't that ridiculous? He's 17 years old, maybe?
17 years old, wears 74. I mean, I feel good about the chances with him. I feel good about the chances because these guys, I don't know if I shared this story, but I was at the Penn State game. At the end of that game, I'd worked my way down to the tunnel and through that mob of people and got back there. And Kevin Casper was down there, and Kevin and I are friends. So I kind of worked over by Kevin, and we looked over, and there was Kyler, and there was Xavier, and there was Proctor, and all the Iowa players coming off the field are saying to those guys things like, come here. And saw Linderbaum come up to Proctor, put his hands on his shoulders and just bang on his shoulders and say, "You're coming here." And Proctor just smiled and nodded his head. Yes. I mean, that's like un-Linderbaum kind of thing to do. But I saw all those guys going by Xavier, and he was just eating that up. And when I talked to Xavier the other day, I asked him about that game and just the impact. And he goes, "It was never at any place like that. It was electric and it was wild." was great. And so I think that just had a huge, he said it wasn't like a deciding factor, but it influenced him to see what Kinnick was like in a situation like that and to be part of that and think you could play in something like that really impacts the young man. And so, I think they've got a great shot at getting Proctor and Casper to come with him. And, you get the Hall kid, you get a Trader, you get some guys to join them. I think that's a big deal for Iowa to get these highly rated kids, these talented players to come in and see what they can do.
Absolutely. And yeah, this very well could be the first domino. And I've always felt good about Casper. Again, you're the expert on this on recruiting, not me, but I've always kind of felt better about Casper coming here than certainly Proctor. But Casper is also, I mean, I forget that kid's wanted by everyone.
Yeah,
it's not like he's
West Coast.
He's not local.
Yeah, he's not local, but he's grown up going to football. And yeah, we had Kevin on our podcast, and he was sitting in front of his trophy room, and it's all Iowa stuff, folks. It was all Iowa stuff. So, he's doing well. So he's getting a lot of Iowa love at home. So that's what I just think he's going to have a tough time turning down the Hawkeyes. I think he's going to have a tough time saying no to that. And one thing Kevin has told me is that that Penn State visit just hit him different. He's walking, other places. He can go to UCLA, USC, all those different places and walk around and be kind of anonymous. But when he's walking around Kinnick Stadium on a Saturday, everybody knows Kyle Casper because they know Kevin.
Right.
Kevin's not hard to miss. He's a handsome dude, man.
Absolutely.
Got the hair going.
So my last question on the recruiting was Kirk's announcement that I saw Scott Docterman reported on morning of the Big Ten title game that apparently Kirk told his players that he would be returning in 22 and beyond. Is there a chance that's just trying to seal the deal on some of these, like Xavier?
Yeah, that was a question that they had. I know that Xavier's mom said they had that question about the future and how long is Kirk going to coach, and they were assured that he's going to be there for 4 or 5 years. So, Kirk has said, I think he told Chad Lysico at least 70. He's 66, so he might have 4 more years, good years left. The thing you worry about though is as you get there, then you can't keep saying, "Well, I'm going to be here for all 5 years," because you're probably not. So that's the slippery slope you start to slide down at that point. So and it can start impacting recruiting. But right now, I think it's still good, and I think people are, I think they're having a strong list of 23 and 24 kids coming in this weekend. So, it's funny having covered recruiting, and in the recent years, that spring, summer, that late June thing that they always do for the recruits and bring in guys, and they're usually kind of almost like finish up a class in a lot of ways. And they only got like 1 commit out of that group. Everybody was freaking out. And oh my God, the recruiting's going terrible, blah, 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 blah. And they usually just kind of trickle in with 1 or 2 guys at the end. Now it's just the opposite this year. It seems like they're hitting their stride late and getting all the guys at the finish line, and then ending up on the other side not getting those guys that they would normally get. And I think that's all COVID related. I think it's all just kind of the process was just so screwed up this year. It's just everybody kind of getting back on the road at that point. So I think it's correcting itself now, and they're back into the kind of the rhythm of bringing 2023, 2024 guys on. So those guys are getting 3 or 4 trips to Iowa City in before they get to that next June when they'll really try and seal the deal.
And we do have to wrap this up because I know, Tom, you got to get going. Give us some departing thoughts on what we saw last night here in Ames. You and I were both there, and it was Iowa got pushed around. It was not a fun game to be at if you're an Iowa guy. But a nice break now before you hit Utah State. I think it's a needed break. Obviously, they have finals and whatnot. Utah State's no slouch. They've beaten Richmond. I believe they beat Oklahoma. That's a good Aggies team coming to the Pentagon and a game that could be dangerous if you're Iowa. Iowa's got some rebounding issues. They got some physicality issues. I think you and I both agreed before we came on. Keegan Murray does not look healthy, and you, I think, we're pretty adamant about that. He is not 100% right now.
He's not 100%. He's not even close. And, at some point, you've got to maybe just shut him down and just say, you're not playing. I'm not suggesting that he's going to need to do this. He may be better in 8 to 10 days and be ready to go at the Pentagon. And he is great. That'd be awesome. But if he's not, just shut him down until January, till that Maryland game on January 3rd, and let him kind of get healthy because they need him to be healthy. You can't have him looking around. It's the CJ Frederick thing the last couple of years where he just kept trying to come back from various different things and just never got healthy, and it just kept reoccurring and kept bothering him. And Keegan's their best player, and they'll buy a lot. And the other thing they got to fix the rebounding thing, because Big Ten's a physical league, and if they're going to get dominated on the glass over and over and over and again, it's going to be a long year because it's hard to win when you can't rebound, when you're not competitive on the glass.
Well,
and that's
the rebounding efforts were bad against Illinois, Tom, but to get dominated against an ISU team I know they're a physically gifted team, but as far as size, they're not big.
George Connett's 6'9". He's
there's
not
no excuse.
It's not like Kofi Coburn, you can understand. Zach Edey, you can understand.
Travion
Williams, you can understand those guys having an advantage, but they're going to have to get more guys on the glass. This is, one of the underrated things that they're missing right now. Joe Wieskamp was a terrific rebounder from that wing position where it's a guy who's going to get you 7 rebounds a game, 6-7 rebounds a game. And they don't have that guy now. So,
Tom, you know who else was a good rebounder? Jack Nunge and Luka Garza. Both those guys, I mean.
The different. You look at Nunge now, I think he's averaging like 7 rebounds a game off the bench. He could have helped them so. I mean,
I know.
That's the missing piece. They beat Illinois.
That is the missing piece.
They beat Illinois with Jack Nunge. They do.
They might be undefeated with Jack. I mean, who knows? We don't know that. Iowa State completely dominated last night.
I understand why Jack left. I do.
Yes.
Never complain about Jack. He's a good kid.
But I'll say this. I made the comment to Gary Close last night. Imagine if Iowa had gotten Liam Robbins to come here.
Yeah, that's the other one. Liam Robbins. I mean, you had Liam Robbins, although Robbins has been hurt, so I don't even know if he's played yet for Vanderbilt this year.
Okay.
No. So I'm not sure. He has like a foot problem of some sort, I think. So, Iowa needs a break. They need to, they found out when they moved up in class that here's what you got to do. So now they got a path. Now they understand it. Now they got to go out and play better.
Absolutely. So Utah State on Saturday the 18th. Of course, we'll be here live on YouTube with Coach Gary Close for Iowa postgame. And Tom Kakert, it's been a pleasure to talk to you as always. I'm assuming you'll be taking the trip up to the Pentagon. That'll be a fun one. I'm assuming your experience was great last year. It's a cool venue.
I actually did not go last year, and I'm probably not going to go this year. So it's a little risky this time of year to go up to South Dakota.
Absolutely.
So I've had a little too much driving. I'm going to kind of go hide this weekend and relax a little bit. So
well, enjoy some downtime. You got a little over a week, and finally, it's been a newsy week. But as far as football, basketball, you get kind of a break with finals.
We've got plenty of recruiting stuff. So we'll be busy on Sunday for sure.
Well, appreciate the time this evening as always, Tom, and we'll have you on again.
Thanks, Corey.
All right, for Tom Kakert of Rivals and HawkeyeReport.com, I'm Corey Brada from the Hawkeye of the Storm in week 184 of Brada's Branded Thoughts. We'll talk to you soon.